Welcome to Forensic Friday.
where we examine the intersection of true crime, psychology, and the heart of being human in the middle of it all. Hi, guys. Hi, Nat.
It's not like we just spent the whole weekend together.
Entire weekend. From Friday at 11:30 until an hour and a half ago. And it's Sunday night.
Yes,
hmm We had a fabulous weekend, though.
we did. It was great. I'm exhausted now.
Oh, Natalie's family put me up for the whole weekend. We went to her favorite haunts in Breckenridge in Frisco.
Frisco.
It was just wonderful.
What did you call it?
Breckenridge?
No, Haas?
Haas? Haunts. Have you not heard that?
No.
Oh, I teach you all these weird words that people in the South use all the time. Haunts is like where you go, the
Oh,
places you frequent.
Okay.
There you
That's
go.
cool.
You learned something new.
There you go.
Unless I'm saying it wrong, which is also possible.
I wouldn't know because I've never heard of it.
So, when we were driving back and I said, hey, we need to listen to this episode of Armchair Expert with Alex Cooper,
Yeah, and then we didn't.
who hosts Call Her Daddy. Well, we didn't because I can't hear anything.
Oh yeah.
And then we ended up talking anyway, because that's what we do.
Yeah.
Well, I listened on the way home and it's so good. You got to listen to it.
Okay.
And there's a new documentary about her. Actually, on
Huh.
Hulu, there's like a 2-episode documentary. I've always wondered why people love her podcast so much. She's the biggest female podcaster.
Fascinating.
And she tells the story about how this billionaire had all of these major podcasters come to his place to have like this weekend get together of sorts. And I'm
Huh.
thinking, this is how, and then there were none. Is that the name of that Agatha Christie book where they all show up and they all die?
Oh gosh.
So they were kind of laughing about that because they didn't know the billionaire who invited them.
Oh my gosh.
It's not a little creepy.
Yeah, it's very creepy.
But anyway, she had the best story, and I'm about a quarter of the way in. I'm going to listen to it on the way to work in the morning too. But her mom was a therapist.
Oh.
And so she was talking about how her interview style reflects, growing up, particularly with her mom, who would talk to people all the time and was really skilled at doing that, and would like do mini therapy sessions with her friends in the living room and stuff, which, I do that with my nieces and all
Of
the
course.
things.
Right.
But I thought that was so interesting and really kind of cool. And she talked about how, because she's known for giving really good interviews and being able to ask really good and hard questions. That's one of the things she's has a reputation for. And she said she doesn't give her phone number to any of her guests and she doesn't become friends with any of her guests. And
Huh.
she doesn't go to Hollywood events. She goes like, we'll go to an Oscar party if I'm nominated for an Oscar, but she doesn't want to go socialize with people that she's going to have on her podcast someday because she
Interesting.
wants to be able to ask these questions. I just thought that was so interesting.
Yeah. That's
So
cool.
I know, but her last podcast deal, guess how much? 3-year deal with Sirius Radio.
I have no idea.
125 million.
Dang.
That's what we want, people. Help us get there. Then we can buy a place in the mountains.
Yes. Help
And
me.
Matt
Help
can get HBO
help
Max.
me buy my parents' house. My mom wants to sell the house I grew up in. So if we could make that money, then I could buy that house that I grew up in.
You could buy that house. I could buy a house across the street. We
Perfect.
could live our best life. Also, you could get HBO Max again.
I just need to steal my mom's. My mom has it.
Your mom trying to log into HBO Max was hilarious.
I believe it.
Oh, but you know what? I feel her pain because I have a hard time logging into things anymore myself. There's 80 steps and
Passwords that you have to remember. It's just
I finally got the secure device something turned off on my phone because I forget my password every other day.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
they
didn't even
had
know
this-
that it would do that, like where it locks you out for like an hour.
I had to stay up until 12:30 this morning because I was trying to test our mics, our lapel mics,
Oh
And I
my God.
couldn't download the app until I had a password, and I couldn't reset my password until the security delay was over. So I was like watching it count
I thought
down.
you turned the delay thing off.
I did, but apparently you have to wait an hour to do that even.
Oh my goodness.
It was a whole thing. So anyway, I've got it fixed now.
That's hilarious.
So I you have our topic today. I'm gonna let you steer, man.
Oh boy. You're gonna let the delirious one steer the ship?
I know. We're both we so Nat brought me back to my car at the office, left my car at the office.
Mm-hmm.
We park. Grace needs food and a change, right? So she's
Yep.
ready to go. So we go in and we decide we're going to work on our presentation a little bit. I opened my purse and my hand sanitizer had exploded all over my entire purse.
Yep.
So now my office looks like some kind of crime scene. There's papers all over the floor. It's wild.
Let me pull up my notes.
Get your notes, girl. And this is a listener request, right? People engaged with this one quite a bit.
Well, yeah, what's not to engage with?
Relatable and kind of fun to talk about.
Oh, yeah. So today we are going to tackle red flags part 2.
Red flags part 2.
We'll do a third too if you guys want us to, and you can share red flags you've encountered.
Is this sneaky red flag still, or are these ones more glaringly obvious?
I don't really know. I feel like to you and me, a lot of them are obvious, but I feel like with humans who aren't in the therapy world and aren't trained to look for this stuff, it might not be super obvious.
Yeah, it's our actual job, which does make it different.
Yeah.
We see it real fast.
Well, and we hear all these stories, right? So, like, I hear 4 or 5 of a similar story, whereas they experience it for the first time and might not have heard of a story like this.
Oh, that's
So
a
they
good
don't
point.
know to see it as that. You know what I mean?
I do. I know what you mean.
So, the first one I want to talk about is when, if you were dating someone, if their ex girlfriend or boyfriend reaches out to quote unquote warn you about them.
Oh, yeah.
Why, Janine, for you, why do you think this is a red flag? And then I'll share my perspective.
I think it's a red flag because healthy people tend to end their relationships well and move on. It might be dicey, it might not be a clean break, which we've talked about. But when you have this kind of stuff happening, it sort of already makes me think there was some unhealthy stuff going on. And it's rarely, like we've talked about 1 million times,
Mm-hmm.
it's rarely one person.
Mm-hmm.
There's usually some kind of a dynamic going on.
Mm-hmm. Like I've never, I mean, I don't have that many ex-boyfriends because I didn't like date that much, but the people that I did date, I've never felt the need to warn someone about them
Oh, me neither.
because they were good humans, you know? We just weren't
Same,
a good fit anymore.
same.
So,
And we were comparing stories when we were kind of prepping this episode, and we've
yeah.
heard so many stories personally, but also in our therapy offices.
Yes.
What kinds of things, Nat, have we had warnings heard of where there was a warning from an ex-partner?
Well, just that. I mean, they'll like DM them, find them on social media and say, hey, you know, this individual's super unhealthy. Sometimes, you know, and like we've talked about before, people tend to like overuse things like narcissism and borderline and all
And
that stuff.
toxic.
Toxic, right? But they'll say stuff like that, right? Where they'll say, this person is very narcissistic or, you know, they cheat or whatever.
Yeah, abusive.
Abusive.
They're
Yep.
still sleeping with me.
Yeah, that one. That one.
We
Or
talked about that one.
yeah, yeah. That happens so often. And here's the thing, you guys. If they say, "Oh, that person's just crazy," that run like you're on fire.
Yes.
Run like you're on fire.
If there's even a 1% chance that that person is telling the truth, I
Mm-hmm.
think you have to really think about it. And I'm sure there are situations where there really is an unhealthy person chasing a relationship. That can happen.
Yeah, sure.
But my antenna would be up so high.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then if you see that, let's say you choose to stay, you got to run that all the way to ground. Like you need to know what was actually going on.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And if they make you feel crazy for wanting to know what was going on, then you really
Bye.
want question
Yep.
answered.
Bye bye. Because then if they say something like, why don't you trust me without giving you a reason to trust them?
Yeah. Or you say, because your ex contacted me, dude.
Yeah.
That's why.
And I listened to this podcast and they said most of the time that's what's happening.
Janine and Natalie said I should break up with you.
Yeah. They said
Well, you're
most
the
of the
bad
time
guy.
this is actually happening. So I need to see that it's not.
If you're someone who struggles with codependency and you have a
Hmm.
hard time getting your feet under you, get into therapy. But if
Hmm.
you need Nat and I to be the bad guy, you can just say, "Ugh, I listen to this podcast," and they're like, absolutely not.
Yeah, they said run like I was on fire.
Uh-huh, absolutely.
So that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't tell them the podcast.
Yeah, please don't. We don't need them to then be our stage 5 clinger.
Right.
We're not trying to collect
Like,
any of
why
that.
did you break my girlfriend and I up because she thinks I'm sleeping with my ex? Well, you probably are sleeping with your ex.
Well, and also, I will tell you, even if that happened, Nat and I's first response is gonna be like, "Hey, man,
Hmm.
this is really hard. Also, what are you doing?
I know something's going on for this to come
Something's
up.
going
So,
on," and then they're
bro.
gonna cry and they're gonna talk about their mom or something. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's how
Exactly.
that goes. We're here to
Yeah.
help those guys. We'll help them.
I just know too many people that this has happened to.
I
And
know.
every single time, the girl, the quote unquote crazy girl who's reaching out is correct and telling you the truth. So that's one of them. The other one that I wrote down is if you are paying for everything due to them not being able to pay for anything.
Oh, I heard a story last week where someone offered to pay for dinner on a date,
Oh gosh.
and then when the girl got there with this dude, he was like, "Oh, so expensive, blah, 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 blah," and then had her go halvesies after inviting her to dinner and offering to pay.
You know, I was watching an interview with 50 Cent. I love 50 Cent. I think he's hilarious.
Oh, I know. He's one of my faves too.
And he's totally after Diddy. It's the best.
Oh, it's very enjoyable. I like that as well.
Oh yeah, it's so funny.
He's
But
getting it.
he was giving some interview. I forget the guy's name that he was doing it with, but the guy asked who pays for the date. And he said whoever invited the person on the date.
Yeah, I mean, it's just common sense. I
I was
don't
like,
think
so and
men
I
have to
like that.
pay
Like if
for
I
everything all the
invite my
time.
husband on a date, I'm gonna pay for the date.
Yes, I think
I
that's
mean,
common sense.
yes.
I still
I
joke though with Garrett. Sometimes when we go out, I'm like, "Where's your card?" Like I'll give him a hard time, even though it literally does not matter.
Same with us now.
Okay, so what if people are in a long-term committed relationship and they split bills? Who should pay?
Ooh.
Ah,
I actually have friends who, oh my gosh. I watched another funny reel or something that's talked about married couples or long-term couples who Venmo each other for like buying the coffee.
that's incredible.
I can't with that.
I don't, there are not there's not enough like storage. I don't know what it is. Garrett could tell us. But whatever it is that drives Venmo, there's not enough of that in the world to track Garrett and I's transactions over 20 years.
No.
We would have to pay them. You know what I mean? To keep
Yeah.
track of all that. It's ridiculous.
Well, I just think it's so interesting when couples do that, you know, and they're like, okay, well, I bought coffee. So their wife or husband Venmos them for coffee.
Why do you think people do that? Because I understand why sometimes people have separate finances. I don't do
Yeah.
that. I know you don't do that.
Yeah. No.
But I understand that there are some reasons why people do that. I understand prenups in some situations. Like
Oh,
I have no issue with that.
I totally agree. I totally agree
But
with that.
why do you think a couple would take it all the way down into the granular like coffee back and forth
I'm
thing?
gonna be honest, I don't know why they would do it.
I don't either.
I don't know. You know, friendship's obviously a little different. You and I aren't as, I'm not like counting pennies,
Me neither.
but I do have friends who do count pennies, and that's fine,
Yeah.
you know, but it's like, yeah, it's just like for friendships, I get it more so.
Oh
To like,
yeah.
you have to count pennies to the exact. I'm like, that's kind of funny, but with couples, I just don't get it. Like splitting bills is different if you have
Yes.
separate finances. That makes sense, right? Like you get utilities, I get this, right? Whatever. But when it comes to like I bought you a coffee. You owe me $5. Well, Starbucks, it's like $10.
You and I spend so much time together. We literally just spent the whole weekend together. There's no way to keep track of it all. But I think we
No.
know it all comes out in the wash.
Yeah.
And in a relationship, I think that women should absolutely, when you're dating, when Garrett and I got together, neither of us had any money at all. And he was so sweet. I mean, I want to say for the first probably 6 months, he just paid for everything.
Mm.
And finally, I looked at him, I was like, dude, I can pay for some things. And then we started, because we were getting more serious, everything was coming out of the same pot anyway, really. I mean, we actually
Right.
merged our finances before we got married, but
Yeah.
it was like putting 20 bucks and 20 bucks in the same account. And then we had 40 bucks. It was not,
Right.
when you have properties, it's a whole different thing. I understand all of that.
And that's fine.
It's
That's
totally
usually when you're
fine.
like a little older.
But if their best effort to get to know you and they've invited you is then to kind of either pull a switcheroo or divide it right down the middle, unless you really enjoy doing that,
Hmm.
that's not a second date. Because if that happens on your first date, what is it going to look like for the rest of your relationship? It's
Yep.
not going to get better.
Right. I agree. But
Mm,
I'm talking about like if you just pay for everything, right? Like
yeah.
if we're married or just seriously dating and the our MO is that I pay for everything that I want to do and what you want to do.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do.
It's not healthy. The other person's not as invested, in my opinion.
Do you think that women at times historically have abused this? Because I kind of do.
So what's funny is in the situations I'm thinking of, it's been the men who've abused that.
Oh, I mean, I see that too. And we see parasitic lifestyle and all that, which we've talked about on here before.
Yeah.
But I know some women who have taken this to a degree that's weird.
Oh, for sure.
You
I mean,
know,
yeah, I think probably historically women do it more, but in my brain right now, I've a couple situations where the men mooched off the women.
I know women feel really bad when this happens too, because it just feels really yucky either
Hmm.
way.
Hmm.
But because it's a little bit countercultural historically to do this, it tends
Yeah.
to make the women feel really devalued and just bad, really bad.
When they're paying for everything.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, and I think, like I said, historically, I do think men tend to fall into this, and I think it's like what we talked about earlier, a codependent thing,
Hmm.
like the love addicted, love avoidant.
Yes.
Men tend to like swoop in and quote unquote save, their partner, especially if they're struggling financially, so they'll pay for everything.
Mm.
Those typically are the love avoidant because they're saving, and then that person becomes emotionally codependent, and then that person's overwhelmed.
And then it comes back up later.
Yes. Well, and then it's a cycle,
Hmm.
right? Because that person who's paying for everything gets put on a pedestal. Well, they can't live up to that, right? So they end up disappointing their partner in some way, shape, or form, and they get knocked off the pedestal. But then they come back and they say, "No, no, it's okay. I got it. I got us. We're good. It's okay." And then they get put back up there,
That's right.
right? I can't remember if we said this one in the first one, but if we said it, we're gonna say it again.
Is it that important? We got to hit it twice. We
Yeah,
didn't hit it the first time.
yeah. Well, I'm gonna put two of them together. So if they criticize your friends and or family, and then also if they don't have friends,
Yes.
and if they aren't close to their entire family. I'm not talking about like you cut off your mom or your dad because they've been abusive or whatever, but if you have no contact with your whole family, there's like levels of significant isolation. That's a pretty big flag.
Well, and it's important questions.
Yeah, like why? Why don't you talk to literally anyone in your family?
Yeah, sometimes there's a big story there, but you got to look into that because it could be a sign of something bigger.
Well, I'm thinking of a situation where they said they cut off their whole family, but in what came out was that their family cut them off,
Hmm.
right? And so typically you don't get the full story.
Oh, yeah, you hear whatever the person wants you to hear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, why do you think it's not great if they criticize your friends or family?
Well, I think criticize, I mean, that's one of the four horsemen, right? We've talked about that before.
Mm-hmm.
Criticism is different than maybe giving feedback or perspective because it's normal in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
When you bring in a new person, they might see things differently.
Mm-hmm.
They might go, hey, why does this person in your family talk to you that way? Have you ever noticed that? That kind of stuff, I think, happens.
Yeah.
But when it's critical and negative and there's
Yes.
no balance to it, that is often an attempt to isolate you.
Yep.
And some of the more dangerous folks that we get in relationships with try to cut us off from the people who know us the best.
Mm-hmm.
And it's scary how fast that works.
Yes. And they do it because they don't want anyone else giving them the, they don't want to say, hey, those are red flags,
Oh, yeah. I
right?
think you and I are the last two people who would get invited to meet a new boyfriend if he was problematic
Oh, 100%.
for so many reasons. I don't think the
100%.
boyfriend wants to meet us, and I don't think the friend wants us to meet them.
Correct. Because they don't want us to tell them, hey, something's up.
Well, and the way you and I operate is not only would we tell our friend, but we're pretty likely to sit with this new person and be like, I don't like how you're talking to her, dude.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So I get it.
Or I don't like how this went down.
Oh, for sure. That's one of my favorite things that you say. I don't think I like how this happened.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay, Natalie's getting into it now.
I know. It's my MO.
I love that though. It's direct and honest.
Mhm.
Highly
Yeah.
inconvenient.
My friends don't always love that, but that's okay.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Also, you guys, here's the other thing. If a friend is telling you, hey, there's something up with this person, or hey, this is what I think the situation is, and you get mad at them, check that out. You're getting mad for a reason because because you're defensive. Why are you defensive when that person just cares about you?
And there's always the friend on the true crime show who's like, we
I
tried to
told her.
tell her.
I
It's either
told her.
an idiot who's like, I shouldn't say idiot, that's unkind. Sometimes couples keep their dysfunction really hidden.
Yes.
But sometimes the friend is like, I don't know, they look so happy. And then all this stuff comes out. And then other times the friend's like, oh, we had his number and she just wouldn't listen or he wouldn't listen.
Right.
Right.
Right. Okay, the next one I have, which we actually literally just started to talk about, like getting defensive if someone calls you out. So it's if you are justifying their behavior. So if you have a friend who's like, "Hey, I don't love this," or like, "Hey, this isn't healthy," or "Hey, this is borderline abusive," and then you get mad at them or you say, "No, no, no, like they're just upset. They just had a bad day," or they just want to hang out with me more, whatever.
I
Justifying.
understand him.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You just don't know him yet. He'll open up more. Whatever the thing
Mm,
is,
it's not good.
it's not always great. Yeah.
No, no. Next one. If they ask what you talk about in therapy without you offering information first.
Yes. I think people get nervous when I would honestly, if Garrett went into therapy, I'd be nervous because there's something vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
about knowing that your person is likely talking about you to someone
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
Like that is nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
However, I can sit with that discomfort like that. I'm not
Mm.
gonna lose it because I also trust our relationship
Mhm.
and I'm curious about myself. But a
Yeah.
controlling person is gonna be highly uncomfortable and a little bit fixated on what
Mhm.
you're doing in therapy. And they probably, even deeper than that, know that their behavior is not great.
Which is why they're so nervous or
Exactly.
so like pushy. The next one I have is avoiding conflict slash sweeping it under the rug. Why is this typically a red flag? It could be like a yellow flag,
Could be a yellow flag because there are
depending.
avoidant people. There's a
Yes.
lot of avoidant people.
Yeah, so it could be a yellow flag. What would make it a red flag?
I think a red flag would be if everything's just fine all the time. And you
Yeah.
just don't see any real impact
Hmm.
because it could be that that person really is the most chill person, but it could also be they have a habit of things building up and exploding.
Hmm.
So I remember when Gary and I were dating, because he's the coolest customer. You know him. He just doesn't get mad.
Hmm.
I actually had the wherewithal at 20 to ask him, what
Hmm.
happens when you get mad, man? Because I haven't seen you mad.
Hmm.
And then I met his friends and I met his family, and I realized that this just really is who he is. It's baked
Yeah.
into his personality.
Yeah.
Also, though, could be a little avoidant,
Yeah.
just like I can pursue a little bit hard, but it's not to a range where it's getting swept under a rug.
Right. Right. Well, and now you guys discuss the thing.
Yeah. I would argue we've discussed the thing the whole time.
Mm.
But you have to put a little time in to see if it's avoidant or if it's personality.
Hmm.
And then if they can't have a conversation, then it's more likely to be a problem over
Hmm.
time.
Yep. Yep. And if they don't want to talk about it when you bring it up,
Yes.
that's not good.
No, uh-uh.
We already kind of covered this one, but if they say that their exes are all crazy,
Oh, I hate this. We talked about this in the first one too, but it's so bad.
it's so bad. And it's important, you guys, because if they're constantly like, "Oh yeah, my ex is nuts. My ex was crazy." They have their own level of unhealth as well.
We run into this in evaluations. One of the sections that we cover in our interview is tell me about your past relationships. Why do they generally end? That's what I always ask. I've learned this. Why do they generally end? And if
Hmm.
it's not like a little bit different, like most relationships, every one of my relationships ended for a different reason.
Right.
They're not all the exact same reason.
Right.
The more unhealthy the person, the more that answer is the same across relationships.
Yeah,
Isn't
that's
that
true.
interesting?
Yeah, but that's true. I could see that.
I learned like 3 or 4 years ago, I said, I'm going to ask it this way. And I got all kinds of interesting things. Like, I've always been cheated on. I've always cheated on them. I don't know. It's like everything's perfect and then it's not. I get like the same reaction or the same
Hmm.
responses. And what that tells us is there's a pattern that's pretty in there, pretty deep in the person and in the people they're choosing to be in relationships with. And that's something we can work on in therapy.
Yep. Agreed. And the last one I've written down is if they push sexual boundaries.
Oh,
I know. This
tell
one's a
me what you think about this one.
Oh, well, I mean, I think this is like a dark red flag. You
Mm-hmm.
know, if it starts, typically what we see is, or hear, I should say, hear about is the relationship will start pretty respectful and the person will push the boundary to see what the boundary is. It'll get established and then they respect it until the relationship becomes more serious. So, i.e., like marriage, or we have a kid together, and
Yeah,
now
or
we're
we're
planning a
engaged, or when
son.
we start pushing.
Yes, yeah. It's typically marriage though, because marriage is harder to get out of.
Yeah,
And then if they start to push it, right? But if you notice it up front, because here's the thing, there's always some signs,
almost always. Yes.
almost always signs that they're gonna keep pushing it,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's in really, really small ways. So if you find that that's the case, chances are it's gonna get way worse when you're more committed.
A good woman and a good man, right? Either one
Hmm.
are going to care the most that their partner is comfortable
Yes.
than that their needs are met. So their needs are a part of the conversation over time,
Yes.
but a healthy person cares deeply about their partner's
Hmm.
comfort.
Hmm.
And from a consent perspective, that should be it in the
Yep.
conversation is if I'm
Yep.
uncomfortable with something, we're not doing it.
Even if I'm a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, we're just not doing it. And it should be the other person who's as worried about that as anybody
Hmm.
if you're building a relationship with them.
Well, and this gets into like consent versus compliance.
Yes.
right? So if you find yourself that you're complying
Mm.
to what their needs are, you're allowing your boundaries to be pushed.
This goes back to that oh, what's his name? Aziz Ansari?
I have no idea.
The actor, and there was this article that came out about this woman who'd hooked up with him. And she came out and really said, I felt really pressured in
Mm.
this interaction and it was not consensual.
Mm.
And he came back and said, wait a minute, we were both there. Like,
Mm.
I didn't force you to do anything. And it got into the compliance piece where he would ask, push,
Mm.
push, start something, push. And she was saying no pretty consistently.
Yeah.
According to the again, I don't know these people, so
Allegedly.
allegedly. But what was interesting about the conversation, and this came up in the show The Bold Type too, there was an episode where one of the characters, this was an allegation about them, and they were like, that's not true. Like, that's a reach,
Mhm.
whatever. And the truth is, you should not have to pressure someone into having sex with you. If
Oh,
you're doing that, then you're on that line and you're
yes,
hopping a skip away from something really bad. And the impact to the other person is always negative.
it is. It is.
Always negative.
Yep. If you find yourself struggling with respecting people's boundaries, go watch a little video called Consent T. Literally,
Oh, we love this one.
consent space TEA, like T, and watch that. And it'll help you understand this better.
Also, let me just give you like a hot take for a second.
Hmm.
If you're in the dating world, I'm talking mostly to the women, but okay, men, you too. Let's see if this applies. If you're getting pushed, I want you to say two things. Number one, why are you pushing this so hard?
Hmm.
And long pause.
Hmm.
Second is, what's your dysfunction?
Hmm.
Pornography, sexual abuse. What's
Hmm.
your deal? I
Hmm.
may or may not choose to work through your deal with you, but you got a deal.
Yeah. And if you
And,
share it, maybe we can work through it.
and listen, they may put a man shaped hole in the wall getting away from you, but you will also be safer if you approach it that way.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about right out the gate the second they kiss you. I'm saying if you're getting pressure,
Hmm.
call the thing what it is.
Exactly.
You can ask it nicer than that if you want, but you also don't have to.
No, you don't have to.
Especially if you're dating. Oh, I would be a disaster dating because I would be like,
Oh, me too now.
"Moving on, sir. I don't like how you chew. Moving
Oh
on.
my gosh, I know. No kidding.
I didn't consent to seeing your mouth full. Thank you."
I don't know. I mean, the horror stories that I hear about the dating world, it is unreal.
Well, the problem is it's like online shopping. That is
Mm.
so hard.
I know it literally it really is.
It's online shopping.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
got 3 in my cart. I'm not sure. I mean, is this like
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to be on any side of that, really.
Yeah. No, I'm so glad I missed that.
Same. But I'm really passionate about listen, men get sexually abused and assaulted too. So
Yeah.
I'm not like counting them out of this conversation, but I'm really really passionate about keeping women safe because women are so much more likely to be hurt in this way.
Mm-hmm.
And it just matters a lot to me and I don't know many if any women that haven't been in this position at some point.
Yeah.
It's like the club nobody wants to be in, but we're all kind of in to
Mm-hmm.
varying degrees. And I
Yeah.
don't know that I still don't think men fully understand that,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
That
I
makes
agree with
even
that.
good men, I don't think, how could they? They don't
Yeah.
always, I mean, it's not like they don't care to know, they just probably aren't going to experience it the exact same way.
Right. Right. Well, and generally, it falls into what you and I've talked about in some of our groups, just the idea of perception and perspective,
Mm-hmm.
right? Being able to understand that women and men just have different experiences and being able to try to understand that perspective,
Yeah.
right? Women typically feel more unsafe than men do. Typically, not always,
Yes. And if
right?
you're a man feeling picked on, check out part 1 because we absolutely talk about women's toxic behavior.
Oh, I feel like we focused more on women in part one.
Oh, we did.
you know?
Because we have a lot of behaviors that are unhealthy that are a little bit more typically
Mhm.
female. If you're looking at a binary
Yep.
dynamic.
Yep. Yep.
Oh,
Well, that's all I got for us.
I know. Thanks for hitting some more. We had actually a number of people write
Yeah.
into us about this particular topic.
Yep. And that it was helpful.
There's a lot of you out there fighting for your lives, dating.
Y'all, send me some stories. I won't share your name.
Mm-mm.
But if you want us to do like a part three of some of this, because a lot of the ones I got are literally from friends who've shared stories with me, whatever.
That would be a really interesting episode to just share stories and
Mm-hmm.
how people navigated some of this stuff when it came up.
Yeah.
Oh, send them in, people.
Send them in.
Well, we will see y'all on Friday. And as always,
Bye, forensic friends.
I'm Janine.
And I'm Nat.
And as always, thanks for listening and join us next week for more crime, psychology, and heart.